Good morning and welcome, Patriot Radio News Hour. I'm Joe Jaquint, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group. Our toll-free number, 800-951-0592. The website at allamericangold.com. And welcome to Tuesday. Remember, this is going to be a short week. We've got Good Friday. We are going to be closed on Friday, so that means you've only got 2 more days. Then we got the Easter weekend. We'll be back on Monday, and the breakout is here. We are back on. We're on all-time high watch here today. Gold's up 30 plus 1977. I was 7 in 1977. How about that silver? Holy smokes. Up 75 cents here, 25.75. So, gold, remember, we're watching that 1960 level. We've broken above that. And again, this is just technical stuff. This is just because this is paper computer nonsense. But we got to follow it. For silver, $26. We need a close above 26. So silver's not quite broken out yet. Gold has done it today. No surprise. The inflation data was out. It was hot. And let's face it, it doesn't even track inflation. We're going to give you the numbers. I'm going to tell you in the next segment, we're going to do something. If you make $100,000 a year, how much has the central bank in form of inflation taken out of your wallet? In other words, how much money would you need to make today if this day, April 12th, 2021, you made $100,000? How much did you have to make this year just to stay the same? Right? And I'm not saying, hey, now you're right. No, just to stay exactly where you are. That's coming up next. Jason, good morning up there. Really, the gold markets continuing to rally. And again, this is something we warned everybody about. These are the game changers. Even though rates are rising, gold's rising with it because it's not rising out of strength, right, Jason? It's rising out of monetary policy mistakes.
Is it rising out of fear for the inflation number coming out today?
Well, the number's out.
What is it?
So I've got the number. And that number, now, got to remember, this isn't even the real number. This is a made-up fallacy of a number. But it's the number they give us. By the way, the highest number since 1981, it came in at 8.5%. 8.5% was the number, and this was the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, the highest since 1981. Now, you got to remember, they tracked it differently in 1981. This was at the Paul Volcker Fed at the time, right? Inflation was coming down. Interest rates were 16%. All of those things. And again, once again, shelter, the biggest factor in the increase. But that number is such a joke. The shelter number, we know whether it's rent, mortgage, whatever it may be, the best the shelter number would be is 15 to 20%. They're down here at like 3.8%. And that's the biggest number of the index. So it's full of a bunch of lies, but neither here nor there. 8.5%. Now, want to know what saved it from being 9%? Used car and truck prices allegedly fell 3.8% for the month. I've got a used car and truck guy on my back lot. I promise you, prices didn't go down 4%. Now, did they go up 5 or 10% this month, last month? No. But again, all full of holes. If you tracked it the way they did in 1981, Jason, we'd have a number right around 20%.
That sounds real. That sounds like the real number. And I don't know how they got away with on their fake number 8.5. It sure seems like even in their fakeness, it's too low.
How about this rent? I don't mean to, listen, I don't know where these people live. Rent up 4%? Are you kidding me?
That's not true.
There's not a person in the valley. If you rent in the valley, nobody. 4%. I will tell you right now, rent in Phoenix in the last 2 years up 50%. 50. Believe that. It's absolutely incredible. Like I said, this is, by the way, the 12th straight month in a row where you ended up making less money. In other words, forget, all the pay raises aside. We have just gone through a whole year where the standard of living has fallen. And here's the sad part. It's getting worse again. In other words, we're falling faster and faster. Credit card data came out. Man, the amount of people having to use the credit card debt rising at the fastest pace on record. This is an economy. Listen, that can't last forever, right? Once you hit the max on the credit card, that's it. There is no more. It's going to be a wild, wild ride. And like I said, gold is going to go to huge, huge levels here. Silver's going to go along with it. I've been warning you. I've been telling you, get that gold put away. How much does your portfolio weigh is going to be the biggest factor in how well you're going to survive the next 5 to 10 years. Patriot Radio News Hour. We're going to be back after the break. 800-951-0592. I just got this in. Here, I've got two cases of Silver Eagles. They're $20,500. You're going to save $20 a roll. Right now, a roll of Silver Eagles, $8.40. I've got two cases. First two callers get them at 800-951-0592. These are sealed cases of U.S. Silver Eagles, 20,500, and that's it. This is just how it's going to go. A lot of you have been patient with silver, 2 to 4 weeks on silver, and yesterday I told you closer to 4 weeks. These will ship immediately. So if you want to get in, call right now, 800-951-0592. As we watch here the gold and silver markets after the inflation data. So they came out and said 8.5%. Okay. Now, what happened to 2? Where did 2 go? Remember during the financial crisis? This was going to help them do a better job. Yes, our inflation target. And of course, they were tracking inflation that didn't actually track inflation and came up with 2%. And man, if we could just get the 2%, remember, we went like 10 years where they said, we just can't get inflation. Remember what I told you back then. 2% is just the starting number. See, the bigger the debt, and again, we've been fortunate because we've been the reserve currency of the world. That gives you an advantage. That allows you to carry way more debt than you should normally be allowed. And guess what? That's ending. That is ending. And now, this is why I said, listen, we are in a horrible inflationary cycle that will end in a major crash. And then we are going to live with much higher inflation than we've ever been used to, and it just destroys the standard of living. So let's get the example. $100,000. You made $100,000 a year ago. Based on this phony number, 8.5%. You had to make another $8,500 a year to stay even. In other words, if you got a raise of 8.5%, yeah, that's massive. Or another $710 in the fake Federal Reserve, in the fantasy land where unicorns and make-believe live. Your standard of living stayed the same. Now, we don't get to live in that world, right? Maybe it's with Zuckerberg, right? Maybe in the metaverse, the inflation was 8.5%. I don't know. I don't do that stuff, but maybe if you put on the whatever you call it, the goggles. The name escapes me. I don't even know what to call it. Jason, do you know when you put the goggles on? I don't know.
Scuba diving?
No, when you're in like a video game.
Virtual reality. Virtual reality.
Virtual reality. That's the word.
Goggles.
Scuba diving.
That's where we're going to be underwater.
Yes. Our virtual. So let's just come on. I'm going to be kind and double the number. 17%. For most people, if you live in Phoenix, Denver, Miami, Austin, Texas, right? San Diego. That's your reality. Right? Maybe in the slums of San Francisco, because nobody wants to live there, maybe the rents haven't gone up like everything else. I don't even know. Probably have. But at 17%, you would have to make $17,000 a year more just to stay the same. And you got to remember, last year, inflation was bad last year. If we had to have inflation up 5% last year, 8.5% this year, think about where you really have to be at. And that's the fake numbers. Think about the real numbers. You're probably in the last 2 years in making $100,000  2 years ago. At a minimum, you probably need to be making $125,000 just to stay where you were at. Now, that didn't happen for most people. Right? What did they have to do? They had to move. And I can't afford the rent. I got to move to a worse place. Here's the sad part. Even if you didn't move to a worse place, you had to move farther away. And now what? Now gasoline is $4.50. You got to remember, the Fed does all of these things to minimize. That's not part of the equation. Right? The fact that, hey, maybe you've got to spend another 10 gallons a week in gas. Doesn't sound like a lot, 10 gallons. That's $45, $50 a week. Now I got to spend an extra $200 a month in gas. I had to move, and maybe my rent stayed the same, or maybe I moved and my rent only went up a couple of $100. Then you get the energy bills, the power bill, right? The cable bill, the phone bill, every single bill you get, it's another $5 here, $10 there, $20 there. It's almost impossible. And this is, I don't care what the income level is, whether it's $50,000, $100,000, $250,000. Unless you've gotten a 25% raise in the last 2 years, your standard of living has fallen. And this is exactly what Jason and I have been talking about. The biggest downshift, when this is over, and by the way, it's going to be over soon. We're on a 12-month watch. The countdown is on. Between now and the next 12 months, it could be at any time.
Joe,
we're going to see tens of millions of people, Jason, move into the lower class.
How bad is the inflation really? Because how many months has it been since the freebies stopped coming to people's pockets? You know, how many months past all the stimulus and child tax this and give businesses this money and all that's gone? You know, mortgage forbearance, that's been gone for months now, and it's still going up, Joe.
Yeah, and when they sit there and lie and mislead, when you see record increases in credit card debt, records. And this wasn't Christmas time. We're talking about record increases in January, in February, in March. That tells you people they're running out of rope. And this is the big thing that's happening behind it. You know, Jason and I talk about the stock market a lot. We talk about, listen, if it wasn't for Apple and Google, right, Amazon, this market's not very healthy. This is exactly where the U.S. economy is right now. Yes, it's still moving along, but more and more and more and more people are getting really close to the end of the rope. And when you get to the end of the rope, something has to give. And we're not talking about, hey, maybe 1 million people. We're talking tens of millions of people are getting to the end of the rope. And when we get to the end of the rope, the fall is going to be fast. And it's going to be furious. And, of course, we've got idiots running this central bank. These people never saw inflation. They didn't see this inflation. A year ago, I was sitting there. I was telling you what was going to happen. I saw it, but they didn't. Come on.
Joe, you would have been just as good holding cash from last year to this year than holding the stock market. You know, the stock market is a year ago was 34,777. We're at 34,500, so it's essentially the same, and that's cash, and that's a bear market. If we have 20% inflation, that's a bear market. The markets are crashing. It's just that we haven't had this kind of higher inflation, and we've had inflation for a long time, bad inflation as far as I'm concerned. But this higher level of inflation, and comparing the market's performance, people don't. It's a couple of generations back before someone could do something like this, Joe. And
when we look at
crashing markets,
gold's up 14% year over year.
Yep.
Is anybody surprised? And here's the thing. Gold still it needs to be up 25 because remember last year gold wasn't up at all. So there's still a long, long way to go in all of this. And just think about all the things that they're saying they're going to do, or the big rate hikes and the shrinking of the balance sheet and all that. That's all nonsense. People have no idea. I really don't understand why you out there in the listening audience sit there and have money in the bank right now. That's just a fool's game. And listen, I'm not talking about, hey, I got $5,000 in the bank or 10. You're all right. You got to have some money in the bank. You got to pay bills. But if you're sitting there month after month holding this money in the bank, think about how much you're getting robbed. If you had $100,000 in the bank, let's just say you had $100,000 in the bank for the last 2 years. Because that's what people do. Because they don't know what to do. They're like, I don't want to invest in the stock market. I don't know what I'm doing. I get that. It's a big casino. Bitcoin, I don't understand that Bitcoin stuff. I'm not doing it. I'm just going to keep it in the bank. 2 years ago, you could have bought things for $75,000. Today, those same things cost $100,000. You've been wiped out of 25% of your wealth, and you don't even realize it because guess what? The bank statement still says you got $100,000 in there. Still says you got $100,000. The problem is that $100,000 buys way less. You know, the best one, and this is something I think everyone could relate to. I remember, Meanwhile, we go to the store, our kids were growing up. You go to Fry's or Kroger, you go to Walmart. Man, $100 filled that cart up. Today, I'm not kidding you, $100? It's not even 10 things, Jason.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, it's not even 10 things. It's so ridiculous.
Joe, the S&P, we say just about the end of August, beginning of September, was about 4,500 points. And where is it sitting today? It's sitting at just under 4,500 points. But gold at the beginning of September was about 1,750, and gold's over 1,950 now, obviously 1977. So I mean, just look, the markets have frozen solid. And Joe, if the markets start going down in value, that's a tremendous crash. As long as this inflation is going, Joe, and the markets go sideways, that's a crash. The housing market going up shows that owning something actually has some value, but even the housing market's probably going to take some sort of a dip here as things get rough, Joe.
800-951-0592. I've got, by the way, the cases of Silver Eagles gone. Just that fast. What are you going to do? This is where we're at right now. I've got 40 $10 Liberties. 40 $10 Liberties at $1,150. So that was yesterday's price, $1,150. Gold's up, like I said, almost over $30 right now. And I've only got 40 of them at 800-951-0592. By the way, silver's now up 80 cents here, 25.80. Gold's broken out above that 1960 level. Silver trying to break out. We need to close above 26. I'm going to give you another province that you've never heard of that is going to be very important to how expensive food gets come October. Remember, Jason and I, we've been warning about October for a while. I think October is when it all comes down. Jilin province, and if I'm saying that right, this is a province in China. This is what they would consider the Chinese Corn Belt, if you will. So picture like Iowa, right? Authorities, video has emerged of authorities taking farmers off of their plows as they are, getting ready to plow the fields for planting season, by local police for violating lockdowns. So we haven't talked a lot about this. We talked about the lockdown in Beijing, which, just won't relent. But China's locking down all of these provinces. The Jilin province, another 20-some million people. They're saying that the spring season in China is off to a horrendous start. That farmers no longer keep good seeds from previous harvests. They don't have the seeds. They're not allowed to plow fields. This is going to be, and again, this whole thing, yesterday we talked about what was going on in Ukraine. They're saying crop production in Ukraine, cut it in half. Jason, now China's main producing area, it appears that in the video, I watched these videos. These police are going right out to the fields and yanking these people off their tractors.
Well, I'll see your video and I'll raise you another one because I was watching a video in these lockdown cities and the people are violently, Chinese actually protesting, which is rare. They're starting to protest. And some of these people are leaving they're supposed to be locked down at home and their food is being delivered to them. And some of these places are getting no food. So they're going out to the street and it's like, what are we doing? You guys are going to starve us to death while you've locked us down for COVID. Makes you wonder if COVID lockdowns are a way of trying to keep food shortages, riots at a minimum, Joe. And that's crazy because China should have plenty of food. And if they're not delivering the food to their lockdown cities, that makes me think there's some food shortages in China right now.
Yeah, well, remember the Olympics? That was one of the, not that I really watched any of it, but they were saying that there really wasn't a lot of food for the athletes This may get a lot worse than people think. Bird flu running wild here in the U.S. The Department of Agriculture now saying 24 million poultry birds like chicken and turkeys have now been called. You know what I didn't know? Do you know the largest egg producing state was Iowa? Did not know this. Apparently, bird flu decimating the population there. A dozen eggs. Now, this is wholesale. At the start of January, a dozen eggs wholesale, $1.20. Yesterday, the price hit $2.60. And this is, dude, that's huge when you see it. And that's just 4 months.
False scarcity, Joe. We talked with Bill yesterday, and I asked him the questions like, that these PCR tests you can't be just. Here's the thing: if the chickens are dying of disease, that's one thing. They're not saying that. They're saying how many chickens have been, have died, not died of a disease. They're testing. I was like, well, this flock can kill them all. A couple of them have a bad PCR test and takes them out, Joe. But Dr. Bill says, like, well, you cook these things, and there's all kinds of bugs that are in these things. You can test it for all kinds of diseases, and they have tons of them, and that's why you cook your food, Joe. And I
don't know, man. This whole thing is just
false scarcity, Joe.
Weird.
You create scarcity to fit the narrative of the next emergency, and that's why October. Man, how many emergencies between now and then are they going to hit us with?
There was a subway attack in New York City today. I want to say 13 people dead. They were saying that there was an individual in the subway system in New York with these canisters and possibly unexploded devices. Philadelphia has reintroduced the indoor mask mandate. Maybe of all the mandates, the dumbest one.
The New York schools are doing it too, Joe.
What I mean by that is somehow you could only get COVID when you were walking through the restaurant, but if you were sitting at your table, you're sitting at a restaurant, you can have your mask off and not get COVID. It makes no sense. But again, Jason, this thing just doesn't end. I mean, the line of things that they're going or possibly can use to once again create problems it's unprecedented right now.
The New York school system reintroduced masks also, Joe, so New York is just never going to get away from masks. You remember that Walmart warehouse that kind of blew up and burned to the ground? Well,
like in Indiana somewhere?
Yeah, I think it's Pennsylvania. I can't remember which state it is.
Pennsylvania?
Yesterday a UPS warehouse blew up and burned to the ground.
Oh, yesterday. Oh, gotcha, yeah.
That's two. That's two warehouses that just spontaneously combusted in the last month. I wonder how many more of these are going to happen.
I want to correct. I said 13 people killed, 13 people injured. I don't know if anybody in the subway attack in New York City today. They're trying to at least insinuate that it was a possible terrorist attack with some unexploded devices.
How many times have you heard of warehouses just blowing up and burning the ground? It just, I'm sure what happens once in a while, maybe once every 5 years. That doesn't happen. Now twice in a month, Joe. You have these warehouses burning up.
That is weird.
Yeah. False scarcity, Joe. They're building here's the thing, they're building a whole bunch of warehouses in California. That coastline with all the ships sitting out there, they're on a rampage of building warehouses over there. It's almost like they need to have them there, and they don't really need them in the breadbasket anymore. It's just weird. It's weird stuff, Joe. It's weird stuff.
800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back after the break. 800-951-0592. We got about 20 $10 Liberties left at $1,150. I do have some $5 Liberties. I'm trying to just let you know what we have right now. $5 Liberties at $650. So if that helps you out there, 800-951-0592. If you're just joining us, the gold markets are up over $30 here, $31, $19.75 right now. Silver is up 85 cents, 25.85. The Dow's in positive territory, up 250, mostly because the 10-year note, which had gotten as high as 285, is at 271 on hopes that, hey, inflation at least won't get any worse. Here's the bad thing about inflation. Well, it's up 8.5%, so they say. Remember last year, what was the number? Like 4 or 5%. You got to compound that. Well, you add them together. It's actually a little worse than that. So what if it slows down to, I don't know, 7, 6? Well, in 3 years, you'll have had to have made 30 to 40% more money just to stay up. It's a net sum losing game. And inflation at 2%, you slowly get poorer. When you're talking about inflation at these numbers, you get poorer much quicker. It's official now, and maybe this is the start here. They're now saying that the automotive industry, both new and used car sales, are in recession. You're starting to see articles about housing. We'll wait and see. It's too early to tell. But I can tell you right now, we're on the precipice of 40 to 50 to 60 million people being out of money as they max out these credit cards. And we talk about October a lot. And that's not a date that, Jason and I, we didn't pull it out of thin air. You go back to March when the Biden administration, through executive order, all of a sudden said, man, let's go. Let's get this central bank digital currency ready. And by the way, in October, we want a legislative proposal that we can vote on ready to go. So this tells me that they already know what's happening next. And what is that going to look like? And this is kind of where we're going to spend the last little part of the show talking about. What will it look like? Will there be a banking holiday? I think that could be very likely. And the reason I think that is because I think we're going to lose thousands of banks. We've already gone. Think about this. Ronald Reagan, the end of his term, there was over 18,000 banks. Now we have less than 5,000. And honestly, with a central bank digital currency, you probably only need 50. Because what banks will be in the future, you won't have an account at JP Morgan for your checking and saving. That'll be at the Fed. Right? You'll go to your banks for home loans, auto loans, credit cards, and let's face it, already the 10 biggest banks in the United States have 90% of the deposits. So is that such a big stretch? No, it's actually pretty simple. But what about your money that's in the bank? Well, I'm going to say this right now. There's no doubt in my mind. There's going to be a threshold. I don't know what that threat. They love $10,000. I don't know why they've used this number now for the last 15 or 20 years. Hey, below 10 grand, you're fine. Above 10 grand, yeah, we need to have a discussion, right, as to whether or not you need all of that money right now. It's going to be bail-ins, not bail-outs. The way they wrote the rules with the SEC and with Dodd-Frank, they're well within their rights, especially if you've had large sums of money in the bank for years. You've proven to them you don't need that money. And there's going to be a formula, and they're going to tell you how much of that money you get to have. Right? They're going to tell you The rest of it, you know what? You don't need it. Here's some stock, and we'll let you know later if anything can be worked out. We're not sure. I think there's going to be, for the right type of people, there's going to be bonus money involved. That's just my opinion. I don't know. Privacy will be over. I think cash is going to get very dangerous. There's going to be, at least what I think, and I don't know if this is going to be immediate later on, there's going to be a day. You've got until whatever. You've got 6 months to get all the cash in the bank. And after that, the money's worthless because we're not using that as money anymore. My fear is when you show up to the bank for more than $10,000, with more than $10,000, what are they going to do, Jason, right? Oh, shoot, why don't you step over here? Let's talk about how you got all this money. Yep. Jason and I will talk about that next. 800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour. We're down to $5 liberties at $650. There may be a couple of tens left at $1,150 at 800-951-0592. If you're brand new, all you do is call the number. You just say you want the special. We'll get you with that real hard question. How many would you like? But before the break, we're talking about, okay, what's going to happen? Listen, you just have to accept it. They've already told us what the rules are going to be. We're going to a digital currency, period, end of discussion. And they've done it all through executive order. There wasn't some big vote in Congress because there doesn't have to be. The question that we posed before the break, what about the cash? There's going to be a time limit. There's going to be a time limit. You're going to have until X day to turn it in. And for those of you like a lot of us, with my hand's in the air, I'm one of these guys. Matter of fact, my wife and I just had this conversation about it the other day. Showing up with more than $10,000 in cash, and again, they just love that $10,000 number. And you think about $10,000 doesn't do anything. Remember, you got to have a 3-month supply of cash on hand. Or 6 months of cash on hand. Well, that's going to put you way over $10,000. Why do I know? Well, come over here. Well, let's fill this form out together. How did you get this money? Right? We're going to let the IRS take a look at it here. I could imagine, man, you walking in there with $100,000. That's going to be a problem. I could very easily see them saying, well, tell you what, we're gonna give you credit for $10,000. And the rest of it, we'll get back to you. Right, Jason? We'll get back to you. The IRS is going to be making a phone call to you. You know, you think about the Biden administration. How many IRS agents do they want to hire, Jason?
87,000 more IRS agents getting ready for the digital currency. That's
okay, hold on a minute. 8,700 agents?
No, that's 87,000.
No, 87,000.
I don't know how close that is.
What do you really think they're going to do?
I think it's like 1% of the workforce. I think
87,000 of them. They are telegraphing what they're going to do. Not to mention the abilities after that. We've already talked about they could just outright ban things, right? They could limit, I always use it, they can limit gun purchases, they can limit ammo, they can limit gas, right? They can limit anything that they feel, oh, that's a bad ESG item, let's limit that. Right? Beef. Hey, you're only allowed, 10 pounds of beef because, cows are bad. They fart. I mean, it's bad. Right? We got this meatless We got this meatless beef, though. You can have that instead, right, Jason?
Yeah, man. I just read an article, just the headline of an article. I'll have to look into it. Apple is Cook. Is he like the CEO? Cook, is that his name?
Yeah.
On privacy. Cook. He said this: "We live in a data industry complex built on surveillance." Because that's them helping you out, Joe.
At least he was honest about it. 800-951-0592.